that they can hear about it later.
Sure.
Okay, so without further ado, we have a guest speaker today. And as I mentioned in the email, he works for Clovis PD, not as a police officer, but I'm pulling your official job title here. Police Service Manager. But previously had mentioned to me that he has his license in social work and obviously works in a forensic setting. So you're a forensic social worker. And so I asked him to come and speak with you students to kind of let us know about your educational background and then things that you've done in the field and generally what people can do as this career. And then we'll kind of take it from there and answer questions and that kind of thing.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. And can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, okay. So yeah, I mean, I started out, I'll go all the way back to my college years, or maybe my high school years. That might be helpful a little bit. So my high school career, I really wasn't that focused on school like I should have been. And so maybe that resonates with a few of you. And really didn't know what I wanted to be. All I know back then is that I enjoyed sports and wanted to go play sports in college. So I did a little bit of that, but soon realized that, I wasn't going to be a professional athlete and make a living. So needed to transition to school. And knew I wanted to graduate from college. But really, when I made that decision, I really wasn't prepared for the academic work. So I went to junior college and had to take a lot of remedial classes to get up to speed, especially in English and writing. So that's where I started. I knew how to work hard, so I kind of applied what I did in sports and worked hard and focused and started taking the general ed classes, but also remedial classes to get my skills up to speed. Over the course of my college career, I ended up taking 8 English classes to get where I needed to be. So if that resonates with some of you, and I just want to encourage you to kind of keep going and keep working hard, and you'll get to wherever you want to be. So after junior college, went to Fresno State. Back up just a second. In junior college, my degree was in business. I got an AA degree in business. So I was a business major, thought I wanted to go into business, kind of like the competitive world of business. And at the same time, I was doing some coaching at the high school level and thought about being a teacher, but that I didn't see myself in a classroom setting. So then I started looking for some other careers and thought about psychology and thought about social work and ended up settling on social work. So I ended up getting my bachelor's degree in social work from Fresno State. Graduated a long time ago, 1986 with my bachelor's. At that time, I knew I wanted to do clinical social work. I knew I wanted to do individual and family therapy, and thought that I could do that with a bachelor's degree. Soon found out that I couldn't, so I had to keep going to school. So I continued on and got my master's degree in social work, and was eventually hired after that at a small nonprofit agency here in town, doing individual and family therapy, working with families that were in the child protective system. So there had been some kind of abuse. I did that for about a year, and then our clinical supervisor at the time had moved on. We were trying to hire somebody to take her place, but the pay was so low that nobody was applying. And So I ended up assuming that position and became the clinical supervisor um, in that agency, which was a great experience. Um, and ended up total working years in that agency for about, I think it was 5 or 6 years. Then I applied for a position at the Clovis Police Department. And the police department position, the title of the position was juvenile counselor. So they wanted somebody to come in and work with their kids who were committing 601 offenses, out of control offenses, and also some of the 602 offenses as well. Generally not the kids that are going to probation and on probation. This was an early intervention type of program. So I applied for that position. Was fortunate enough to be selected in that position, and then was hired in 1994 to do individual and family therapy. Absolutely loved it. Still love doing therapy. And so I did that work for 15 years. And then that was around the time that the economy kind of went down in the dumps. And our department had to do some budget cuts. We also had a number of people in the administrative ranks who were retiring. And so the chief had approached me about becoming a manager in the police department and becoming part of the chief's command staff. So I was interested in that because as I'm interested in doing the clinical work, but I'm also interested in agency policy, social policy, and having an impact on our organization at the command staff level. So I moved into that position. And there was no title for the position, by the way. The chief said, well, what do you want to be called? And I said, I don't know. And so somebody settled on police services manager. So that's how I got that title. So I'm on the chief's command staff with the chief of police. He is my boss, and the captains of our police department, as well as the lieutenants within our police department. And everybody that's on the command staff has their areas of responsibility. Some have patrol, some have investigations, some have planning and neighborhood services, or our dispatch, or our records department. I was assigned, and have always been assigned since day one, to our youth services division, which that makes sense, right? But I was also assigned to our animal services division. And I thought, and my wife laughed at me because she said, you're going to be the head dog pound catcher. And so I kind of chuckled at that. But I'm in charge of animal services, which includes I don't know if anybody's heard of the Miss Winkle's Pet Adoption Center here in Clovis, and also our shelter, which we call Clovis Animal Services. So those two areas I'm responsible for. And you might ask, well, what does that have to do with working with people and social work? Well, it actually has a lot to do with working with people. I was in particularly interested in that area because organizationally, animal services is a very small part of our police department. And so at the time, a lot of the staff in that area felt a little bit disconnected from our police department. So I felt it was my role and my job to help kind of build up that part of our organization, help them develop a sense of value and commitment to the great work that they do, and then kind of take that energy and then also reach back out to our community and have a lot of positive community interactions as a result of that. So that's what we've been working on in that area, and that's what my challenge has been, working with animal services. We have great people doing great work, and it's been fun and challenging at the same time to get the organization to where it is today, where people are generally highly motivated, happy, doing a very stressful job, and also, feel connected to our police department. Um, so that's my work in animal services. On the youth services side, so I'm the manager now of our youth services division. We have a diversion program in which kids are cited for being out of control or committing a misdemeanor offense. And they come in and they sit down with their parents and with our juvenile hearing officer, who then makes a decision about whether or not to assign them some community service as a consequence. And our community service is pulling weeds and picking up trash in the city of Clovis. So they actually get an orange vest, and they go out and clean up different areas of our city. And they're generally assigned anywhere from 1 day to 5 or 6 days of community service. Parents have to voluntarily, they have to be willing to voluntarily participate in this program. They can choose not to. If they choose not to, then what we'll do is refer the citation over to the probation department. You might have heard of diversion programs before. There are a lot of different agencies that provide diversion programs. As a social worker, accountability is important, but really more important than that is really the manner in which we provide the services to not just the juveniles, but also to the parents as well. So when they come in, a big focus of ours is to work with parents on parenting issues if they're struggling in that area. Our juvenile hearing officer does a great job with that. And then with the kids, although we're holding them accountable or giving them some type of punishment or discipline, it's not, in a way that is, you're bad, you're horrible, you're not going to be successful. It's really in service of trying to help them to make better decisions, so that those kinds of conversations happen within the hearing itself. There is a little bit of follow-up that goes along with that from our hearing officer, and periodically. Not as much as I would like. I would love to have a case manager assigned to youth services to do more follow-up. I'd also like to have a mental health provider assigned to youth services. But when I was promoted, my position as juvenile counselor was eliminated. So we've never gotten back to the point of being able to provide the individual and family therapy within the police department like I was doing in the past. So I think that's a big need. I've talked to the chief recently about trying to creatively do that on a part-time basis and bring that back a little bit, with hopes of building that back into our program in the future. I think I want to stop right there and see if there are some questions out there.
I certainly have some, but I'll wait to see if a student wants to chime in first. Probably not, they're shy. So one of the first things I had a question about is, what's the difference between going to just do like marriage and family counseling, like at Fresno State, there's a counseling master's program, and then there's a social work master's program. So what is the difference there?
Yeah, good question. Similar careers, but so marriage family counseling program will focus only on doing therapy. It's a great profession, and have friends who are marriage family therapists. The difference in social work is you're focusing on understanding clinical work and how to do individual and family therapy, but also focusing on understanding agency policy and social policy. So you get classes in in a wide spectrum of areas, and social workers practice at the clinical level, or at a macro level, or somewhere in between. Um, uh, so um, so if somebody is just interested in only, and they know all they want to do, I shouldn't say all they want to do, but their focus wants to be clinical work, and that's what they want to do the rest of their career, marriage family therapy is a is a good option. If they think they might want to do a little bit more than that, and learn about agency policy, social policy, community organizing, then social work might be a little better option. It's a little more broad, and that's why I chose social work, because I knew I would start my career as a clinician, but I thought that in time I would also become an administrator.
Right. So it's more opportunities for change potentially than
Yes,
as a
at
marriage and family therapist.
right, at different levels of society, right?
Mhm.
Micro, macro, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Can you talk more about the like graduate education? What was that like, years wise, and what did you kind of generally do?
Yeah. So first of all, I loved graduate school. Uh, Absolutely loved graduate school. Sometimes wish I could just go back and study. But so the graduate program in social work was, I tell people who are interested, the content wasn't necessarily hard, but the amount of work was overwhelming, completely overwhelming. There was absolutely no way to do all of the reading that was expected in every single class, and you had to make some decisions about what it is you were going to focus on. Um, so um, I think anybody going to probably any graduate school needs to be prepared for that. I remember professors saying in the very first class, let your family know that you're going to, basically your life's going to be on hold for the next 2 years. And that's how
Yeah.
long I went full time. So it was and they were right. I was engaged to my wife at the time, and I only saw her on Friday evenings for a little while, and sometimes on Saturday. So it was difficult. And a couple of those professors also said, that be prepared for stress on your marriage if you're married, because graduate school is stressful. And that was true. We did have a few people end up getting divorced during that time,
Mhm.
which is kind of sad. But the work itself, love the work, love learning. It's a as it should be. It's a different level of focus on more knowledge and expert knowledge, I think, in graduate school. And I remember thinking at the time, it's like, how am I going to learn all this stuff to be proficient enough to go out in the world and be able to help people? And I was
Yeah.
worried about that. And there were, um, I did my internship at the VA hospital. And
Okay.
at the VA hospital is a very rich learning environment, but I also felt like I was very small in that environment, because I'm working with, um, medical doctors who have been there for a long time, psychiatrists, psychiatric residents, and here I am, a social worker with no experience, coming into their rounds and expected to contribute in some way. Well, I wasn't prepared for that, and felt very small and very inadequate for a long time in my internship. But in time, acquired some skills to be able to participate. But what it took was um, really, they had a medical library there, so I would go to the medical library and uh, just research whatever I needed to research to understand. To say schizophrenia, I really didn't know what schizophrenia was back then. So it's like, what does that word even mean, right? And what does that mean if somebody has schizophrenia? So I had to go literally look those kinds of things up. and look up things and look up the disorders it was back in the DSM-3 days, which was many years ago, and really study that book and understand what these disorders were. And it helped in that I had clients that were coming in that had those disorders that I could, I could get the book knowledge and then see what that was look like in real life and experience that. So at the VA hospital, I was able to learn about emergency social work because I got to work in the emergency unit, got to work in the outpatient mental hygiene clinic, and also the inpatient psychiatric unit, and then also did a little bit of medical social work. So a very, very good experience there. And so I'd encourage all of you, I don't know if you're required to do an internship, but although those can be difficult, I think it's invaluable to get into the work world and start to experience what work life is like and what your profession is like out there.
Right. We have it required for 3 out of the 4 options or majors. With what I'm in, FBS isn't requiring it, just also because we couldn't find placements for our 1,900 students.
Yes.
And it's not really something that undergraduates can always get direct experience with for a variety of reasons. So where you're a graduate student, social work, probably more likely to be able to do things at the VA versus an undergraduate. But I did 2 internships myself as an undergraduate and I love them. So
yeah,
I think are invaluable as well.
Yeah, I actually did my undergraduate internship at probation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so did a little bit of basically case management at the probation department. Yeah, that was a great experience too, because I had never done any kind of work like that before.
So I know in different graduate programs, internships are a requirement. Was it a requirement for you, and how long was the internship?
Yeah, so actually that was one of the differentiating factors for me and why I chose social work too, is because they do require extensive internship. So at the bachelor's level at the time, it was 15 hours a week for 2 semesters. And at the graduate level, it's changed since I've been in school, but I had to do 32 hours a week for 2 semesters in graduate school. So it's basically working full time.
In school, yeah.
And school, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything else to say about the graduate program part before I ask another question. I kind of interrupted with the internship.
Well, I just want to emphasize the importance of being committed to that. And make sure you like what these are all undergraduate students for the most part, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you choose to go to graduate school, make sure that you are choosing a career that you like, because you're going to be spending a lot of time, energy, and money and investment in yourself studying. And so you have to be committed to the profession that you choose. Otherwise, I think it can be very hard to get through it if you're not really sure or committed.
Yeah, that's true of any graduate program, I'd imagine. Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
And so I know licensing is part of being a social worker, and I have no knowledge there. So can you tell us what that's like and what you had to go through?
Sure. So I mentioned when my first job, by the way, when I first started working, I made no money. It was $1,500 a month. So just be prepared. You look on these books and you see what the salary ranges are, and it's not always the case out in the real world. So, but that was okay, because I knew I needed to get, in order to apply for my license, I needed to accumulate basically 2 years of full-time work experience under a licensed professional. And so there was a social worker in the agency who provided that for me, and there was no cost to me for that, because it was just part of what came with the job. So So I spent 2 years, studying and working under her license. And then at that time, you had to pass a written test. And that was the first step. And so I took the written test as soon as I could and passed that. And then at that time also, you had to go and present, or actually they would give to you a vignette and you would have to talk about what it is you would do that vignette, and you would have to talk about that case. And that's what I did. And I remember it was very nerve-wracking. My wife was with me at the time, and she asked me if I was nervous. I said no, but I was extremely nervous. She knew I was. But yeah, so it's basically 2 years of full-time work under a licensed professional and documenting all of those hours. I think now there's even a contract that's required between supervisor and supervisee. There wasn't when I went through. They just had to sign off on your hours. So if that's something that interests you, be prepared for that, because you're not done after graduate school in terms of becoming licensed. And the license basically allows you to go out and have your own practice independent of any organization. And it also allows you to be able to bill insurances, no different than a medical doctor would.
Do you have to get licensed to work?
To work independently?
No, just to work in the field. Like if you knew you
No.
didn't want to work independently.
No, there are a lot of MSWs that don't get licensed, and they work in child protective services. They might work in other foster type agencies or other nonprofits, the domestic violence area. There's MSWs who work there. And I believe that you can also do therapy without a license in a government organization.
Okay.
So no, you don't have to become licensed.
Okay. There's a question.
Okay.
Sabrina.
Hi. So I don't know if you asked this question. I did have to step out for a minute. But so I plan on going like a victim advocacy route. And I know like most jobs only require a bachelor's degree, but would you say like if I did decide to do like social work that I should get the MSW?
I would definitely recommend that you get an MSW degree. I think that one, you acquire more knowledge, which then gives you more capability to help the clients that you're working with. I also think you become more valuable for the organization that you're working for, and I think it also opens doors for you that would not have been open for you had you not gotten a master's degree. That was certainly my experience here at the department. If I would have didn't have my MSW, I don't think I would have been promoted. It was a master's degree that essentially helped to put me on par with very experienced, smart police officers at the command staff level, and helps. If my chief wanted to promote me, so it helps her to justify that promotion at the time that she wanted to do that. And that, by the way, that was very unusual. It's very unusual for that to happen within police departments. It's unusual for social workers to work within a police department, and not normal for social workers to be part of the command staff. So Chief Davis at the time was really, in my mind, a visionary to have that kind of thought and perspective. And I believe what she was looking for was some diversity of thought within the command staff ranks. So to answer your question, yes, I think you should get your MSW.
Okay, thank you. No, and I was at the meeting yesterday with the chief, and I remember him talking about how there were like other positions outside of like just like police officers in the department.
Uh-huh.
So like that would be like what you're doing. So like, you're not like a sworn in officer, but you're still like part of that like community.
Right. I'm not, I never wanted to be a police officer. In fact, in my interview with the chief, um, I, I said, you know, if it's a police officer you're looking for, that's not me. I knew what profession I chose. I knew what kind of work I wanted to do. I've never wanted to be a police officer. I think their work is incredibly important. Um, and I think at times undervalued. But no, I don't. I'm not a police officer. I don't do that work, and I never have and never will do that work. Other jobs within the police department. I mean, I'm sure they covered some of them. I can talk a little bit about that. In my area, we have part-time and full-time jobs. Generally, the part-time jobs are the one that come up most often in our animal services division, either on the adoption side, facilitating animal adoptions and obviously taking care of the animals. And on the Clovis Animal Services side, so it's an animal control officer working out in the field, working with the public, unfortunately picking up dead animals, those kinds of things, and also cleaning in our shelter. On the youth services side, so we have part-time positions that I think are great for college students in our juvenile work program. So those are the staff that supervise our kids that are placed on diversion. They're generally working anywhere from, I don't know, 20 to 30 hours a week. And they also double as part of our graffiti abatement team. So we teach them how to remove graffiti in our city. I'm also in charge of that as well. So I think that yeah, those are a couple of the jobs. I mentioned our juvenile hearing officer. We've had different people within that position with different skill sets. We've had former police officers in that juvenile hearing officer position. We've had a person with a degree in sociology that has been in that position, person with no degree in that position. That's what we have now. And I'll tell you, she's probably the best person we've ever had in that position. So she does an incredible job. She's a community service officer, but she does not have a degree. She raised 3 boys though, so she knows how to handle kids. And then I'm sure they talked about dispatchers. Dispatchers, incredibly valuable, and take in all of our calls for service. And then police officers, and we're kind of unique in the police department in that although we have specialty units, officers are expected to rotate into different positions periodically. And so they can't just stay in one position for their whole career.
Yeah, I like that. I didn't really think about it much because that's not really my expertise. But I remember when I was doing the study with different officers, Clovis being one of them, and them talking, well, I'm going to go back out to patrol soon. And he was a senior officer, but
Right.
The view of the department, as I understand it, is that's the most important role, and to have your senior people back out on the street interacting with the community and obviously doing police work as emergencies arise is very important. So you're not just going to promote and stay in investigations for your career, even though that's the stereotype, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I think a piece of advice that I would give you as young people looking at your going into a profession, you might not get the exact job that you want in the beginning, but it really is that whole saying of getting your foot in the door is important, especially within a police department, because it's difficult to get your foot in the door in any law enforcement organization. And I'm sure you've talked about it or heard about background investigations. Unfortunately, a lot of people fall out of the application process because they don't pass our background. And it's anywhere from 85 to 90% of the applicants that we see. If you can get your foot in the door, maybe an admin assistant position or even a clerical position, and you do a great job and you have a good attitude, you can work your way up into different positions that you might be interested in. So maybe a community service officer position that works out in the field, taking calls that don't require a police officer, or we have community service officers who work in special assignments and do like neighborhood events. We have community service officers who work in our investigations division. They've been on our crime scene investigation units. So when you're out there looking for a job, you might not get the exact job that you want, but if you go and do a good job and you're reliable and responsible, people are going to recognize that, and you have an opportunity to move into other positions down the road.
Sabrina, do you have anything else? I thought I heard you.
No, he answered it pretty well. So, just for the positions such as the like youth services and animal services, so those ones don't require a specific degree or anything. So even like those of us like doing the bachelor's in criminology could apply for those positions.
Absolutely. And I would say overall, the requirements, the minimum requirements to apply for the jobs in the city, to me, in my opinion, they've been fairly low. When I applied for my job, although I came in and did individual and family therapy, the minimum requirement was a bachelor's degree. And to me, it should have been a master's degree right from the beginning. So yeah, I think there's lots of opportunities to apply. You just have to keep watching our job postings at the City of Clovis employment site, because jobs come up and go off periodically. I know I removed a while back the applications for animal services and for youth services, but just keep watching, keep checking back and see what jobs come available. And I think you can put in an interest card too if you're interested in being notified if something comes up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I wanted to keep asking about a little bit about the licensure, since again, I'm not as familiar. After you get licensed, is it like a lifetime license? Do you have to do anything once you're licensed to keep it?
Yeah, certainly. You have to, once you get licensed, you're required to continue to get education. You're required to stay knowledgeable in the field and keep up with upcoming trends. So every 2 years you have to renew your license, and as part of that renewal, you have to have 36, so essentially 36 hours of continuing education credit.
Okay.
So I just renewed my license, and it was up for this renewal this month, and so I'd been working on that for the past couple of years and got that done. But yeah, that's required of you.
So what did you do for your 36 hours?
Yeah, so I before COVID, I went to a class in San Francisco on providing clinical supervision. In my mind, I'm kind of gearing back up to have somebody on board here, a mental health provider on board. So I wanted to get up to speed on some of the new requirements. So that was 2 days of training, and then I attended online the National Association of Social Workers conference in Washington, D.C. Attended that and ended up getting all the CEUs that I needed.
Nice.
So then the requirement is once you have to, so I print out all of those certificates, make sure they meet the Board of Behavioral Sciences requirements, and then keep them for myself, and then pay my $180, $200 fee, something like that. And then check the box that I've completed my CEUs, and they send me my renewal license. Now I'm subject to being audited at any time. So if they select me to be audited, then I have to prove that I've completed those CEUs.
And why do you keep renewing your license if you're not in individual practice?
I think it's important to keep up my skills in the profession, and my knowledge of what's going on in the profession. I still enjoy clinical work. I still occasionally do consultation for people who are coming in to our diversion program. If the juvenile hearing officer feels like somebody would benefit from me meeting with them and then giving them some guidance about where they can go to get the help that they need. So I think it's important for me to keep up my license to be able to do that work. And I haven't given up on doing individual and family therapy. So there may be a time in the future that I go back to doing that, whether that's actually in a private practice or maybe that's doing some of that work here again.
Okay. Students, do we have any questions? So shy.
You can ask anything. It's been a long time, but I still do remember what it was like to be in college.
Well, I can keep asking. What other types of jobs might a forensic social worker do? So if they're not necessarily gonna do the things that you're doing in particular, what other things might be interesting that they would maybe want to do?
I don't know that I can answer that very well, to be honest, because I didn't plan on going into forensic social work, right?
Okay.
You know, so I mean,
or just social work in general. It doesn't have to be forensic, I guess.
Yeah, well, okay, so actually, one of the things that I do that I didn't mention is I oversee our peer support program. And so what that essentially consists of is doing critical incident stress debriefings for our police officers. So police officers experience a lot of trauma, you know, when they are dealing with maybe a car accident where people have been severely injured, or they go to calls where people are not breathing, or children are not breathing and they have to do CPR, or they're they have to get into some kind of fight and their life is potentially threatened. So those kinds of experience have a negative effect on police officers. That's one of the hazards of their profession. So what we do is we'll conduct debriefings, which if you haven't heard of them, basically it's a small group discussion. So we'll take everybody who was involved in an incident, invite them to the debriefing, and we'll facilitate a discussion about kind of where they were when the call came out, what their role was when they were at the scene, and what were some of the most difficult parts of the event that they handled, in order to help them kind of work through the traumatic incident in a safe environment. And with the hope of this being one tool that they're going to use to prevent symptoms of post-trauma stress from sticking with them for a long time. Because if they don't deal with this kind of stuff that they have to experience, then it starts to cause problems with their physical health, potential problems with their mental health, and problems potentially within their job, and also problems within their home life. So being a police officer is kind of all consuming. When they're here, they need to be 100% on. And sometimes it's hard to turn that off. And so that's what the debriefing process helps to facilitate, is help them to get back to kind of a normal state for them. And we go through a whole bunch of different symptoms that a person can experience as a result of going through a traumatic incident. So that's something that the social worker can do within a police department. I know there are other people who do debriefings for the Fresno Police Department, for our fire department. You can be a social worker, or you can be a trained non-sworn person within our police department. So I have, as part of our team, we have a chaplain who's on our debriefing team. We have clerical staff who are part of our debriefing team. And of course, we have police officers, part of our debriefing team.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
May, do you have a question?
Yes, hi. I have a
Hi.
question. So the difference from a regular social worker and a forensic social worker, when cases involve in children and so they're like parents, like domestic violence and stuff. So if their parents and stuff end up getting incarcerated, do the forensic social worker appear in court for them for like testimonies and stuff on the children's behalf?
Yes, I mean, forensic social workers do that kind of work and go to court and testify, on the child's behalf, for sure.
Okay.
Um,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say there's another question, but if you have thoughts still on this one, I'll let you talk.
So I mean, domestic violence is that's one of the most common calls that police officers have. And so we coordinate, our work with the Marjorie Mason Center. They actually receive our cases and do all of the follow-up for domestic violence cases, and provide support for children, therapy for children, support for the victims. And then I believe they have a offender program as well. That's not obviously at their facility, it's a different facility. So we work, not just us, but most law enforcement agencies in this area work closely with the Marjorie Mason Center to make sure that victims and children and perpetrators get the help that they need. And then part of that is definitely the advocacy that takes place when a child needs to go to court, or a victim needs to go to court.
Kind of back to the graduate school, a student asks, I think it's really, how were you able to work and manage graduate school?
So I worked in a group home. I would go to school. I would go to school during the day, and then I don't remember my schedule, but I remember I'd go in to work at like around 3 o'clock at a group home, and then I would work a double shift. So I'd work all the way till 8 in the morning, and at that time we could sleep.
Oh.
Yeah. So my job was to get dinner for the kids, get them, make sure their homework was all taken care of, and then get them down for the night. And once all of that happened, which was generally 9-ish or so, then the rest of the evening was pretty quiet. And then, like I said, we were able to go to sleep. So I would study during that time. Then I would generally go to sleep around 12-ish and then wake back up about 7 or 6:30 and then start getting the kids up for school. And then I would leave in the morning. And sometimes I'd have class. I had to go right to class. And then I would pick up one other shift during the week. So I was only working like 24 hours a week while going to school part-time. I also, I still lived at home with my dad. So that I'm very grateful to him to let me stay home, because obviously that, if I wasn't able to do that, I would have had to probably go part-time and work a lot more. Did I answer your question?
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah, she said, thank you.
you're welcome.
Any last questions for him? Because I know class is over now, but this is a rare opportunity to have a professional speaking to us.
Right now, I don't have any questions, but it does happen to me that like I'm driving or something and like a question pops up in my head. Is there any way for like me to like contact you if I have any questions?
Sure. I mean, you're reading my mind, because I was thinking the same thing. So I have no problem if you want to share my card with them. I can give you my email address now. I mean, however you want to, just feel free to contact me anytime.
I'll write the email address in the chat, but if anybody, I'm sure anybody that's here knows how to get in touch with me since you're here in the first place. I'm happy to give his information out since he said it's okay.
Yeah, my phone number, my email. Yeah, contact me anytime.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's in the chat now. And 42534. Okay. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming. I learned a lot and I appreciate it. I like to learn all the time too. So
Me too. Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And all the students are saying thank you in the chat as well. That's how they communicate, is through the chat feature. So you've got lots of thank you and thanks coming through.
Okay.
And I will see you whenever we meet again.
Okay, that sounds good. I look forward to it.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.